What does it mean to plant your flag? It means you're not afraid.
It means you're passionate about what you do.
It means you're here to serve others.
In business, in life.
In good and bad.
You aren't afraid to fly your colors proudly because you know
you serve a greater purpose. This is the Plant Your Flag podcast with Mike Bean
and Jeremy Mountain.
Hey, thanks for coming back to another episode of Plant Your Flag with Bean Media Productions. We're super excited. We mentioned this in our last podcast that we're going to have Jared Weber here from Bradley Tree. So thrilled that you're here with us. We've had an amazing relationship over the years, and I can't wait to dig into some of the things not only that people might not know about your industry, but also like the ins and outs of what it's like to be a business owner and plant that flag. Because some people find it to be extremely intimidating to plant that flag. And I can understand why, and I'm sure you can as well.
Absolutely.
But first and foremost, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, no, this is great, Mike. I look forward to having this session, and that we're gonna have to probably cut out.
No, it's like I said, the whole thing is like I was in flows, so
yeah.
Don't feel bad about like there's times like in the middle, like I might swear,
yeah,
that may happen. It's just kind of part of my lexicon, and I may switch drinks and do these kind of things. And I know Danielle hates that because now I need to bring another coaster in. Hold on a second.
But no, I mean I'm super excited about this, Mike, and I'm happy to be on here just with our relationship that we've had over the last 12 plus years. It's great to have an opportunity to be part of something that you're starting out with and I'm starting out with, and we're just going to continue this process of growing together. So,
yeah, and that's exciting. And I think that some of the interesting conversations that we've had throughout our relationship is that business ownership and the fact that it's not always something you can predict. It's not something that you can forecast. But we have also had conversations about forecasting what the weather may do to said environment.
Yeah, what the working environment's going to be and how it's going to affect where our industry's going, and that seems to be a huge trend lately.
Right.
We used to have a lot more consistent weather. Now we're having wind events, we're having super wet weather, warm weather, cold weather, all in the matter of like 3 days.
Right.
30-degree temperature swings, and that makes a big difference in my industry, which in turn affects your industry, because then we have to adjust how we're going to approach our media, how we're going to approach our sales, and then it's been nice to have you on the team to kind of figure out and get an understanding of where this industry goes in our business, so that you can ultimately help us with your business.
Yeah, because that understanding and that transparency is super helpful. I think it's one of those things that a lot of other people overlook. They just think that you can have a successful relationship and not necessarily have to tend to it the way that we do with some of our communication. When you first started out, you kind of got thrusted into owning the business a little bit quicker than you anticipated. How challenging was that process for you?
So I guess since the time I was young, I always wanted to own my own business. I was fortunate enough to be born into a family that has a family business. Unfortunately, with some certain family events and things like that, I've had to transition sooner than what I originally expected. And through that transition process, some of the years and years of advice that my father had has been limited due to certain situations and conditions. So in some ways, it's been a little bit of a crutch. In other ways, it's given me the ability to kind of transform the business into what my vision is long term. So, in everything that's a blessing, there's always a curse, and every curse there's a blessing. So it's been great. It's given me the opportunity to learn a lot more, learn it quicker out of necessity, and then just continue to apply the base core values that the company was based on, that Bradley Tree was founded on, but also give us the ability to put some new modern swings on things and get some new fresh blood in, and hire some younger guys that are kind of bringing some new excitement to the industry, and it gets you excited because you know that there's that second generation that's coming up, or third or fourth generation that's coming up, that cares about what we do as an industry and cares about the trees and cares about the environment. So through situations and trials, I've always noticed that if you endeavor to persevere, you end up on the winning end of the spectrum.
It's good because there was a comedian that I follow who recently had said something about, if you can't look for the positive, or if you can't laugh at certain things that happen to be unfortunate in your life, you're going to end up being miserable. And it seems like you've been able to always find that silver lining, and I think that's one of the reasons why I've gravitated towards working with you and like everybody. You've been around with us a long enough time to see that there's been a couple different employees that have helped you and helped us, and like those kind of things. It's unfortunate to see some employees come and go, but being able to still move forward and have confidence that your vision still makes sense to you, that I think is something that we really have in common. And I want to commend you on that. And I wanted to ask, what are some of the things that you had to do throughout the growth of the company and you taking over the company, that you've kind of said, well, this isn't great right now. The weather isn't great. The situation isn't great for the trees. You've got a ton of passion for plant health care, like all those kind of things. But at the same time, there is a silver lining on the other side. How have you been able to balance that kind of stuff?
I mean, I would say just keeping a good attitude and keeping the idea that whether you have employees coming or going, that's a little small part of their life that you're able to influence. And hopefully, if you go into it with the right attitude, the idea is that maybe they won't be with you forever, but maybe something you can teach them, or they can learn, or you can learn from them, is going to help you ultimately long term, and then just improve everybody's life around you. I mean, there's people that come and go, and there's better opportunities that arise for people, or opportunities that might be more geared towards what their skill sets are. And I've noticed that if I've pulled back on being upset and bitter about those people leaving and try to be excited about what their next venture is, it seems to make that turnover process even better. But in turn, taking that attitude on with employees when they're with me, it seems to help to retain those employees, because there's a catchphrase that says people don't leave jobs, they leave people. That's always kind of stuck with me. Right. And I've had a couple, I don't agree with that 100%. I've had a couple employees that I'm still good friends with, I have breakfast with. They had an opportunity to do something that they've dreamed of their whole life that wasn't in the tree industry. Mm-hmm. So, for me to try to limit somebody from reaching what their full potential is, as far as I'm concerned, selfish. So, giving those people the opportunity is great, but I've also noticed that I get out what I put into it. Mm-hmm. You get out of employees what you put into them, and you might hit a speed bump every once in a while, sure, but for the most part, it's worked for me. I've got an extremely good crew. I've got people that have been with me a long time. I've got younger guys that haven't been with me as long, but we're all kind of looking out for each other and shooting for the same goal. That same goal seems to be tree preservation. So,
yeah, it's such a cool thing. I was talking just a few days ago with Jeremy about some of the fulfillment that I get out of what we do, and it's because it's kind of serving a bigger purpose than most people realize, I think. And it is employing other people, and it's also thinking about the next tier or two or three. That it's not only just employing certain people within these walls, but it's also reaching other businesses that help them thrive and help them employ other people. And there's a lot of, I think, weight on your shoulders if you overthink that. How do you balance that responsibility?
I don't. I'm still working on it.
Right.
But yeah, it is a responsibility. And I guess, you could look at that caring for employees or being concerned about employees in a negative way, or you could look at it in a positive way. Right. And I guess I've always tried to look at it in a way that, if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing and I'm holding up to my end of the bargain, most generally it seems like the employees you have hold up to their end of the bargain. And the relationships that get built out of not just the employees that I have, but the different companies that I work with, like you, for example, and, some of our suppliers and, even some of our customers who have their own businesses. And now we have this back and forth relationship. It helps the whole industry, and it keeps everybody accountable for what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think that you have paved a road that not a lot of other companies I don't want to bash anybody else in your industry, but your integrity has always been super impeccable, and it's been impressive to me. And then, as I've also witnessed, like somebody like Merle and your team just climb to, I'm going to just go ahead and say it, climb to great heights with his his accreditations and his education. That kind of stuff must really feel good. And what have you learned from the people who have that kind of drive, to not only just do their job because they're showing up, but also have that passion to take that next step?
So, long story short, Merle and I have been working together for about 16 years. Merle and I used to just be Merle, my father, and I. That was the crew, essentially. And then we've grown significantly since then. But that relationship, that camaraderie that Merle and I were able to build from being in the truck every single day and doing dangerous jobs and being in hazardous situations made me realize how important the relationship with employees and with your coworkers is. Because it's very hard to be mad at somebody when you have to work with them all day. Right. And when you share that, when you share the same goals and ideas, that helps a ton. And then I did notice that the more I was trying to control employees and not let them go into avenues where their skill sets lie, and try to place them and make them do something that maybe was out of their realm of the comfort zone. There's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. But Merle was a great tree guy. Merle is an absolute excellent plant healthcare manager. So, what Merle and I realized is his retention for tree names and spray materials and chemical products and diseases and insect was one of his very, very strong points. So we kind of threw his hat in the ring, see where he went, and 10 years later, he has grown the plant healthcare part of Bradley Tree exponentially from where it was. And I think one of the hardest parts as a business owner is to kind of let go of a little bit of that control and give it to somebody else. And then what I've realized is that there's a lot of capable people out there, right, and I'm not the only one that can do something. Right. And if you can give people that ability to be able to help themselves grow and help them grow in any way you can, it's a wonderful scenario.
It's a great feeling, and we've talked about this and how it takes like a certain amount of a skill set or a mental position to be okay with that. But in my opinion, once you do identify with that and you're proud of the people who are around you, it can be super contagious, and I think it can also be super empowering because you do have faith that if you're not physically present, things are getting done, and they're getting done the right way. And with Merle and all the other people on your staff, they have to have seen some swings in the industry in the last couple of years. We have obviously seen Buffalo not be Buffalo, right? I mean, to somebody who I think is about our age, we remember growing up, and I don't want to sound like walking uphill both ways in the snow to school, kind of a like old guy, but you have probably seen some pretty big swings with these ups and downs in the winters, and I would imagine that's got to be challenging for not only you but the other people that are around you in your company to be able to not only predict, but also to be able to address as responsibly as possible.
Well, and it is, because one day, you'll have jobs set up for a week and everybody knows what they're going to be doing. Everybody likes to have a plan. People don't like to wake up in the morning and wonder, what am I doing today? Right. So, that's one of the struggles we have with this constantly changing weather. You might have a job set up to go into a backyard job on a Wednesday and you get 3 feet of snow on a Tuesday. So you have to be able to shift gears quickly. And I think that's something that I can be very proud of the crew that I have. They have that ability to shift gears. So when we get rain and can't get in on a job, or we get snow and can't get in on a job, they have to have the ability to shift gears, be patient till we get the next plan, the next game plan. And what I've noticed ultimately is by including them in that plan, they always have great ideas. So if I start running out of options or running out of things to do, it's a group effort. So by involving employees in that decision-making process, it ultimately gives me a leg up too, because I'm not just getting my opinion on the situation. I'm getting the approach from the guys that are boots on the ground. I'm getting the approach from the plant healthcare guys. Right. Getting advice from the climbers, the guys that run the chippers. Like, everybody's a very important part of the industry. And I think that gets overlooked sometimes. We have this tier system in our business models. Mm-hmm. And that compatibility to be able to work. I've learned more from brand new guys sometimes than I have talking to guys that have been in the industry for 40 years, because it's a different approach. It's a different view on the situation that you almost get snowblind when you're in it. So
right. Yeah, that's a great analogy. I can gravitate towards that. I get that.
So, but as far as, other situations and issues that we have with the weather changing constantly, we have these big giant wind events when we have storms coming in, and it's almost a shame, because you get these, not almost a shame, it is a shame. You get these big old trees that have been standing out in the middle of a field for 70 years, and then you have winds shift and come from a different direction that they're not acclimated to, and you ultimately end up losing that tree, whether it's uprooting or a major crown failure where branches break out. So I've noticed a lot of that in the last, I would say, about 5 to 6 years. And we're losing a lot of very nice trees that we shouldn't be losing. Some of the other stuff that I'm noticing as well is with the plant healthcare part of it, we're not getting a deep freeze in the ground anymore. Mm-hmm. So all these insects that overwinter in the ground that normally would get killed off or mostly killed off are now thriving.
Right.
Same thing with some of the different fungal diseases that you get that overwinter in the ground. You drop below a certain temperature and those freeze out. So that's one of the things that we're battling pretty hard against in our plant healthcare industry, is trying to keep up and preserve as many of these trees as possible, whether it's emerald ash borer or apple scab or any of the other diseases that we have and insects that we have going on right now. It's been somewhat of an uphill battle, but it's also been a great opportunity to grow our preservation side of the company, which has been great.
Right. And do you think that the emphasis of that aspect of your business has helped you and your team educate, just the group as a whole on how to handle this ever-changing landscape that we're seeing today?
Yeah, absolutely. So, primarily there's the crews that go out and do tree work, and then there's the crews that go out and do plant healthcare. But if we can free up a guy for a day, I like to kind of take one of the guys off the tree crew, put him on the plant healthcare crew, or vice versa. Plant healthcare goes on the tree crew, because then it gives a better understanding of why we're doing what we're doing in the tree, the actual pruning and cabling part of it, and why we're doing what we're doing in the plant healthcare part of it, because it's all one big giant circle and everything comes back to one point. So the more educated these guys can be on this stuff, the better services we can offer to our customers, and the more excited they are about it.
There's nothing better than that. Not instant gratification, but that gratification that you see on somebody's face when you do a good job, and when you have other people in your organization that also appreciate that. I feel like that has got to be rewarding, and also gives you that momentum to wake up the next day and do it again, and you can do it again and do it again.
Well, I mean, absolutely. There's so many companies out there that just do removals. And, we'll get called into, could be a little old lady who had a tree planted 70 years ago by her husband.
Right.
And that tree means a lot to her. So she gets somebody in that says, oh, that tree needs to come down. That tree needs to come down. She might get 3 or 4 different opinions on it. And then, we get called in and we have the ability as arborists to preserve that tree. The look on your face when they've basically been told doom and gloom and that tree has to go, the look on their face when they ultimately realize there is another option, that's wonderful. It's great. And when you complete that job and they see the finished product, the guys that are doing the work get to get that same kind of feeling that I get when you know that you're able to preserve that tree and keep it around for hopefully another 70 plus years.
Does it feel like you're sometimes swimming upstream?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's just there's so many different opinions on the industry that it does. It feels like you're swimming upstream every once in a while.
But I think that, in my opinion, is one of the most gratifying parts about what we do. Your industry is very different than mine, but it's similar in ways where we are swimming upstream. We always have to be aware of what's next, what's new, what's important towards not only today's success but tomorrow's success. And I think that you have your finger on that pulse, and you listen to the people that work with you and around you. And I like I said, those are some of the things that I personally take out of it that I enjoy. And it seems like the same for you.
There again, the negatives can be the positives,
right.
So you do have a constantly changing dynamic and atmosphere, but I know that you're very similar to me and you can't sit still.
Right.
If you had to do the same mundane thing over and over again, you'd get bored. There's no way to get bored in our industries because it is constantly changing and there's always something new. So
yeah,
I guess if I was to look at one of the hard things that are also a great thing about the industry is that it is constantly changing.
Right.
So it keeps things interesting.
Yeah, and I guess with that being said, what are some things, and I'm going to be bold enough to date this. We're sitting here in March, and we're talking about this upcoming 24 season. What are some things that you think people should be aware of and should be on their radar before we wrap this whole thing up?
I would be looking for, if this weather continues to be as warm as it is, there's a really good chance we may come into some drought situations this summer. So watering trees would be extremely important. Keeping an eye out for insect and disease problems on your tree, or making yourself aware of what you do have on your property as far as green living things that may need some attention. Because being proactive is always better than being reactive. So if there seems to be a concern, we'd be more than happy to come in and kind of get a handle on that before there's an issue. Most generally with trees, if you start to see an issue, it's something that may have been able to be addressed prior to a visual issue on that tree.
Mm-hmm. Beyond this weather switch, is there anything else that could be a red flag for somebody that owns a property that has, trees, plants, whatever it may be, before it becomes too late?
Yeah, I guess make yourself aware of what the structure of your tree is. Do you have something overhanging your house? Does it look like you have a root plate or the roots starting to heave in the ground? And, most importantly, if you do have concerns or think there's a concern, call an arborist. Have them come in and kind of do an evaluation, because that's what we do.
Right.
They have WebMD to try to get you pointed in the right direction online, but ultimately, if you think you have an issue, you're going to go to the doctor. So,
right, yeah, and that, I think that's I'm glad that you brought that up. Is the arborist aspect, is that there's a lot of companies out there who will just say, let's cut it down and grind the stump, and we'll take it away, and you'll never have to think about it again. But that's not always the right approach, because these trees and these plants are important towards not only the look of the property, but also just the ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can have, our time here is short compared to trees. There's trees we take care of that are 200, 300 years old. And obviously somebody in the past had the foresight to take care of that tree, and that's ultimately why it's still there. So I think that's our responsibility as earth dwellers to maintain and take care of what we have and the gift we've been given of this absolutely beautiful landscape and trees and flowers and shrubs, and the whole approach of, well, just cut it down and then I don't have to deal with it. That sets nothing as far as a precedence for what our kids and our grandkids and the future generations are going to take on as an approach. And I think if the next generation sees us caring and preserving these things, that's going to be something that's a learned habit.
Yeah, and like, once again, like I said, I do respect your responsibility towards the entire nature of what you do. And it's I think some people can make a quick buck, but you're not looking at it like that. How can somebody get in touch with you and your company if they're interested in just saying, I think I might be a little worried about my property, or I think I might be worried about this tree, or whatever it may be? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
I feel like that's almost a question for you, Mike. So you're the one that set all that contact info up.
So
but
what I would say is just start searching for tree stuff, and then you're going to find ads that are going to follow you around the internet. But I'm just
No, the first one that pops up is always the best one, right?
Right.
So,
yeah. But no.
I mean, we've put a lot into our social media presence and our presence online, and it's something that I feel as though, just like you take care of a tree that's growing, you have to take care of your media presence as it's growing, and you have to be able to manage that. And it's not a one and done thing. It has to be something that you put an effort into, and that you have somebody that's good at managing it and good at promoting your business, to be seen and be heard and be able to do what they know how to do, and then that gives me the ability to do what I know how to do. So between our Instagram presence, our Facebook presence, the nice little quick email you can send by accessing our website, and right down to just making a phone call.
Yeah, it's just, if there is a question, there shouldn't be a question, probably, right?
Correct.
Just reach out. If you can't help, you'll be the first to say. But if you can, you'll also be the first one on the job, it seems.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Jared, this has been a lot of fun. Really appreciate you coming in and taking some time to do this. And we look forward to, more opportunities like this, down the road. So thank you. And we will be back in touch with you shortly with another Plant Your Flag podcast hosted by Bean Media Productions.
That was fun.
So
We could probably sit here for another 3 hours.
I know, right?